What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another video for you guys, and this time I'm going to be doing a viewer response to all my subscribers and followers on Instagram, well, subscribers on YouTube and Instagram followers, of the video I did over a month ago about bands whose third album is their best album. I did my choices, my 10 picks, and I left it up to you guys to tell me about bands whose third albums are their best, or like the third time's the charm metal album for you guys. And now I'm here to respond to tell you whether I agree, disagree, or if I'm unsure. Because I will admit, there might be a couple of albums on here that I'm not aware of, or they're in such a catalog that is so consistent it's really hard to say. So without further ado, let's get started, and I'm going to start with all the picks I got on my Instagram. So the first comment came from my boy Horror Master, a.k.a. Ricky. How's it going? And also, just as a note, I'm going to skip the ones that I have already mentioned on that video a month ago, and as well as repeat comments because they were repeats. But he chooses Slayer, Rain and Blood. I mean, even though I'm personally a bigger Hell Awaits fan, I will admit objectively, Rain and Blood is the best Slayer album objectively. Even though I listen to Hell Awaits more, I will agree that Rain and Blood is the best Slayer album. I mean, it is just, it's a god-tier thrash metal album and basically spawned most of death metal to come after the fact. I mean, it's just brutal, it's fast, it's evil. I mean, what more can be said about that album that hasn't been said already? Even though, once again, I am a far bigger fan of Hell Awaits, even though I ranked Rain and Blood at number 1, that was for objective reasons. So I'm going to stay objective and say Rain and Blood is the best Slayer album. Next one from Fuel Fan says Cannibal Corpse, so that would be Tomb of the Mutilated. I'm going to disagree on that. I love Tomb of the Mutilated, don't get me wrong. I think I had that as my number 3 in the rankings. For me, it's The Bleeding. It'll always be The Bleeding as the best Cannibal Corpse album. I mean, they just found their niche on that album. Like, he had a great combination of, like, technicality, brutality, a lot of fast drumming and blast beats, but with catchy riffs and grooves and occasional melody. Like, that is a perfect death metal album, as if I've ever heard one. So, as much as I do love Tomb of the Mutilated, I feel like it's gotta go to The Bleeding. Next one from Tainted Lord 87. In fact, I think he comes up a couple of times in this because he did Instagram and YouTube, I believe. So, for the Instagram comment, he chose Cradle of Filth's Cruelty and the Beast. I can't really decide one way or the other because, simply put, I'm not a huge fan of Cradle of Filth, and I know it's a cliche at this point to say it, but it's because of Danny Filth's baby squeals. I still don't get why he does them, and I don't get the obsession over it. Like, everything else about him vocally is good. Like, he's got a great black metal scream, great low gothic clean, and death metal roars. But other than that, it's like, just the baby squeals are the big turnoff. So, I can't decide if this album, I mean, if judging by most critics and the fan base, it looks like this is the one for Cradle of Filth. But I'm not going to say if I agree or disagree, for the simple fact, I'm just not a big Cradle of Filth guy. Next up from Edgar Arts, who I think shows up later on when we get into the YouTube comments. He chose Quo Vadis with Defiant Imagination, and says it's a masterpiece with Steve DiGiorgio on session bass. I've actually never heard of this album, but this definitely sounds like something I would dig. I mean, almost anything with Steve DiGiorgio I'll dig for the bass work, since he's a top-tier bassist. But I've heard the name Quo Vadis, but I've never actually jammed them, so sounds like it's gotta be something I'll have to check out, so thank you, Edgar, at least for pointing me in the right direction. Next up we have Hair Ticos. I think I said that right. He says Dimmu Borgir, which I forget the name of the album. I want to say that might be Enthroned Darkness Triumphant as the third one. I mean, I haven't checked out too much Dimmu Borgir apart from some of the stuff from like the early 2000s, which I know gets derided by black metal purists, but I don't care. I still like what I've heard. But judging from most metalheads who say what is the best Dimmu album and they say Enthroned Darkness Triumphant, sounds like I would believe that. So I need to get that album at some point. But for now, I'm going to go undecided because I haven't jammed a whole lot of Dimmu in my time. But, yeah. Next up, we got Boss Antelope 86, who will show up later on. Actually, he responds both on Instagram and YouTube with this. Iced Earth Burnt Offerings. I would agree, actually. In fact, that was going to be one of the picks I was going to do in the video, but I decided to leave off to give some more shine to some other albums, but I definitely agree. I mean, early Iced Earth, like the 90s and the mid-2000s material is phenomenal, but yeah, Burnt Offerings would definitely be my pick. Hell, I would say it's, in my personal opinion, the best power metal album of all time and the heaviest power metal album of all time. Like, it's so evil and dark sounding and just ferocious, like a thrashy bite to their brand of US power metal. Of course, say what you want about John Schaefer, but the dude is a fucking riff lord. And Matt Barlow's vocals, unbelievable, so I would definitely agree with Iced Earth, Burnt Offerings. Next up from Brutal Ben 91, he says, top of my head, The Faceless with Autotheism. This might be crazy. I haven't really jammed a lot of Faceless. I need to, especially this album, because I know so many people rave about this album in the world of like progressive tech death. I'm willing to give it a listen at some point. I just have not gotten around to it. But eventually when I do, I'll let you know. But for now, I'm going to say undecided for the simple fact I just haven't jammed The Faceless very much. So there you go with that. Alright, next up we have Aw Dang 888 or 888. And he says, Queensryche with Operation Mindcrime. I would agree. I mean, that's kind of an easy no-brainer. Well, I guess I shouldn't say easy because, you know, early Queensryche, like all the 80s stuff and Empire in 1990 are all classics. Hell, and again, the stuff with Todd La Torre has been great as well. But yeah, it's unproblematic to say Operation Mindcrime being the best Queensryche album, so I will agree. Alright, so those were all of the Instagram comments. Now let's get into the YouTube comments. Now, I did make the rule stating that you had to pick just one album, but when I posted the video, there were some people that gave out their list, so I guess because I didn't get a whole lot of individual picks, I'll just do the list. However, again, I will skip ones that have been repeated either on my video or I've already mentioned. But we have Phineas Ferb Fan 8507, and he had quite a few I brought up in the video, but there's a good amount that I haven't talked about. First, he says, Beneath the Remains by Sepultura. It's my number 2, and it's a solid number 2 because Arise takes the cake for me. I mean, that album, it just had so many dynamics, like super fast, thrashy songs with like slower, groovier tracks. I mean, Beneath the Remains is a classic, no doubt about it, and it's a close second to my personal favorite being Arise. So, but a good pick. I will say good pick. And then he also says, Avenged Sevenfold, City of Evil. Man, that's tough because personally I'm a bigger fan of Waking the Fallen that was the album that got me into Avenged Sevenfold. However, objectively, this is kind of the same thing as Slayer. Objectively, in terms of songwriting, performance, and production, I would go with City of Evil as well, so I will objectively agree that that is the best Avenged Sevenfold album. Next up, Slipknot with Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. That's actually somewhat of a tough call just because I'm a big Slipknot fan, always have been, always will be, even though I haven't really listened to them a whole lot in a long time. And I do like Volume 3. I mean, that was where I got into Slipknot, was that album. But if I had to say which one I think is the best, I would say probably the debut, or even Iowa probably takes the cake. However, I probably would lean more towards the debut, so I'm going to disagree with Volume 3. I still like it, even if it was definite push into the mainstream, but it's still a good album, all things considered. Next up, he says, Deftones with White Pony. I would actually agree, and again, I'm not like the world's biggest Deftones fan, but White Pony is such a staple of early 2000s alternative metal, so I would have to agree there. Then he also says, Deicide, Once Upon the Cross. Nah, I gotta go with the self-titled and Legion. Like, both of those albums I feel bury Once Upon the Cross. Hell, I even think Stench of Redemption is better than Once Upon the Cross. Don't get me wrong, Once Upon the Cross is an awesome album, but I think it pales in comparison to the first two and Stench of Redemption. But that's just me. And then finally, he chooses Suffocation Pierced from Within. That one's difficult because it's definitely between that and Effigy of the Forgotten. However, if I had to personally pick out of those two, I'd probably lean more towards Effigy of the Forgotten, so I'm going to slightly disagree here. Even though Pierce from Within is an awesome album, I'm a bigger fan of the raw sound of Effigy of the Forgotten, so that's just me. Alright, and then the next one, we got a singular comment from CHTM2D, whatever that is. He says, Fear Factory with Obsolete. That's an awesome pick, but I gotta go with Demanufacture. Or hell, I'm also kind of a bigger fan of Soul of a New Machine, the debut, but if I had to pick the definitive Fear Factory album, it would be Demanufacture. Even though Obsolete's a killer album in its own right, I think it just falls in comparison to the first two, at least for me. Next up we have Mark Palavosvrahots. I'm probably butchered that. 5575. He has 3 picks. Carcass Necroticism. That's a phenomenal album, but it's got to be hard work. It's always been hard work, so I'm going to disagree on that one. King Diamond, Them. Well, I'm going to be ranking King Diamond in 2026, Halloween to be exact. However, I'm going to go undecided, because I know, especially the 80s King Diamond stuff, it's like all neck and neck with each other. So for now, I'm going to say undecided, just because there's just so many to pick from. I don't know what's going to be the best until I do the ranking, but that won't be for 10 months. Alright, and now we got comments back from Edgar under his YouTube channel, and he has a whole list. So the first one he has, Allegiant with Elements of the Infinite. That was the album that I first heard of Allegiant. I haven't listened to the first two, but everything else I've jammed. And to be honest with you, as great as Elements of the Infinite was, I think, honestly, the best album from Allegiant I've heard thus far is Damnum. I mean, that album just captured so many sounds. You know, brutal death metal, melodic death metal, technical death metal, progressive death metal. It was almost like a hybrid of like Black Crown Initiate, Obscura, and like old Opeth, all wrapped up into one. So I would say Damnum for the best Allegiant album, but that's a good pull. Next up he said Breaking Benjamin, Phobia. Interesting choice, although I haven't listened to Breaking Benjamin in a long time, but if I had to pick the album that I would have gotten into further, it would be We Are Not Alone, the second album, so I'm going to disagree with Phobia, at least for now. Then he chooses Opeth, My Arms, Your Hers. That's an awesome album, but I gotta go Blackwater Park. Hell, Blackwater Park, Ghost Reveries, and Still Life kind of beat out My Arms, Your Hers, at least in my opinion. But it's still an awesome, awesome, awesome album. Then he says, Hate Eternal, I Monarch. Honestly, as of right now, I'm going to agree because that's the Hate Eternal album I go back to the most. Especially for the tracks Behold Judas, the title track, Victorious Reign. Like, oh my god, those songs are brutal as fuck. Then he goes, and then he says, Children of Bodom, Follow the Reaper. I would definitely agree on that one. I mean, if I go to any Children of Bodom album first, it would be Follow the Reaper, so I will agree. Alright, and then next up we got Millhouse777. He says, Black Dahlia Murder, Nocturnal. That's a tough one because Black Dahlia has been super consistent. And I know one day eventually I'm going to rank them. And I might end up changing my mind a lot before that. So for now, I'm going to go undecided on this one just because, man, that is such a tough discography to really choose. Next up from Rusty Darlington, he has a few picks. First, he says, Ozzy with Bark at the Moon. Again, I'm going to be ranking Ozzy in June, so for now I'm going to say undecided because I'm going to be going through all the Ozzy albums and I don't want to spoil who my number one is. Then he says Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast. It's an awesome classic album for damn sure, but I gotta go Power Slave for my pick for Maiden albums. I just love that album. Hell, I also like Seventh Son more than Number of the Beast. Even though I love Number of the Beast, to me it falls in comparison to Seventh Son and especially Power Slave. And then finally he chooses Dark Throne, Under a Funeral Moon. Nah, I gotta go A Blaze in the Northern Sky. I mean, Under a Funeral Moon is a good album, even though it's sort of started a bit of a downward trend, at least in my opinion, because Transylvanian Hunger, I'm just still not a huge fan of that album. And I will say Under a Funeral Moon, I think, is far superior, but to me, it's always going to be Blaze in the Northern Sky, so... Alright, and then next up, we only got a few comments to go. Next up, we have the Prison Meddler 7005, or 7005. He's got some rather controversial ones. First, we have Korn with Follow the Leader. Because again, with me and Korn, it's been mainly like the hits. But if I had to pick an album for Korn that I would say is the best, I would probably say Follow the Leader, so I actually will agree. Then he picks Disturbed with 10,000 Fists. I mean, my love for Disturbed has really waned over the years, mainly just because I've just discovered infinitely better bands. But if I had to pick my favorite Disturbed album, I would probably say 10,000 Fists. So I actually will agree on that one. So there you go. Then he also says Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses. That's a strong number 2 album for me because my number 1 is World Coming Down. In fact, I think it will always be World Coming Down just because of how morose that album is. But Bloody Kisses is amazing in its own right, and I fucking love it to death. No pun intended, but I just love the darker tone of World Coming Down. And then his final pick, Halloween with Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 2. Ooh. And then again, I've not listened to everything from Halloween. So for now, I'm going to go with Undecided because I do know it's a 3-horse race between the first 3 Halloween albums for the best one. Hell, even some of the stuff in the 90s like Time of the Oath and Better Than Raw were pretty damn killer as well. But yeah, for now, I'm going to go Undecided. Alright, and now we get to some individual comments, finally. First, we have Trolling in Paradise, 1927. He says, Morbid Angel, Covenant. Man, that's a good pick. That really is a good pick. And I love that album a lot. However, it's still for me going to be Altars of Madness. I'm just a bigger fan of the thrashier Morbid Angel, at least in my mind. But Covenant's a very close second. And I mean, we're talking this close. But I'm still going to go Altars of Madness. Next up from Tony Coldwell, 331, I should say. Corner, No More Color. Wow, that's another good pick because, I mean, then again, every Corner album's awesome. Even the new album's incredible. However, if I had to pick the definitive Corner album, it would probably be No More Color, so I actually am going to agree that it is the best album, even though their whole catalog's amazing, and I need to get the new album, but I'm trying to hunt down the special edition with the Death Cult demo. Next up we have Faustian Spirit 573. Sargeist, Let the Devil In. That is correct. I will definitely agree on that one. Next up from my boy Hunter, just another heavy metal maniac. He says, Crisian with Conquerors of Armageddon. I've not checked out everything from Crisian, however, judging by the fan base as well as critics, that one is probably the one for Crisian. But for now, I'm going to go undecided because I just simply need to jam the rest of the catalog, and that's that. And then the final comment from Callum Nichols 7652, Darkmoor with the Gates of Oblivion, Spanish power metal at its finest. I've never heard it, so I'm going to have to go undecided, but sounds like it might be something I'll dig. But anyways, those were pretty much all the comments, and yeah, this video turned out quicker than I thought it was going to be, but yeah, just basically short, sweet, to the point. There have been so many Third Times to Charm albums out there in metal that probably a lot of you forgot about, even some I forgot about or came close to bringing up in my video, like Iced Earth, for example. But yeah, I mean, this is a great topic, and thank you to everybody who commented both on YouTube and Instagram. But we got one more video to do, and it's going to be a live stream this coming Wednesday night, New Year's Eve. Not sure what time I'm going to do it just yet, but I'll figure out something where I'm going to be doing my most anticipated albums of 2026 stream, where we discuss albums that are coming out in the next year and what we're looking forward to the most. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet.